Being the Roman emperor was the most powerful job in the ancient world. You ruled millions of people. You had palaces, armies, and basically unlimited money. You also had about a 75% chance of being murdered. Over 500 years, Rome had 77 emperors. Only about a quarter of them died in their beds. The rest were stabbed, strangled, poisoned, burned alive, stoned by mobs, or, in one very special case, skinned and turned into a Persian wall decoration. An actual engineer ran the numbers once and said being a Roman emperor had the same survival odds as playing Russian roulette with 4 bullets loaded out of 6 chambers. So, let's go through all of them. Now technically this story starts with Julius Caesar. He wasn't actually an emperor, he was a dictator, but he's the reason the job exists, so he gets a mention. March 15th, 44 BC. A group of senators decided Caesar had too much power, so about 60 of them cornered him and stabbed him 23 times. When Caesar saw his buddy Brutus in the group, he apparently just pulled his toga over his face and gave up. He didn't even say, "Et tu, Brute?" That was Shakespeare. His adopted son, Octavian, looked at all this and thought, cool, I'll take the job, but do it better. And he did. He became Augustus, the first real Roman emperor. Augustus ruled for 41 years, died at 77 from a fever. His last words were supposedly, "Have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit." Absolute legend. He died in his bed like a normal person. But this will not happen again for a very long time. Tiberius was next. Ruled for 23 years, mostly from a villa on the island of Capri, because he just didn't feel like being in Rome. At 77 years old, everyone thought he finally died. They announced it, started celebrating, and then he woke up and asked for dinner. His staff panicked, and his guard supposedly smothered him with a pillow. So Tiberius died because he had bad timing and a nap. Caligula made his horse a government official, declared himself a god, lasted 4 years before his own bodyguards stabbed him about 30 times in a hallway. Claudius, actually a pretty decent emperor, conquered Britain. His wife Agrippina fed him poisoned mushrooms at dinner. When he didn't die fast enough, a doctor shoved a poisoned feather down his throat to help him vomit. Thanks, Doc. Then came Nero. Oh, Nero. This man killed his own mother, kicked his pregnant wife to death, possibly set Rome on fire, and when everything finally collapsed and the army turned on him, he ran away, held a dagger to his own throat, and couldn't do it. He begged his secretary to stab him instead. When soldiers showed up to arrest him, the secretary finally did it. Nero's last words were, "What an artist dies in me." Couldn't even die without making it about himself. Now things get messy. The year 69 AD had 4 emperors in 1 year, and 3 of them died horribly. Galba went first. Soldiers chopped off his head, but the guy carrying it couldn't get a grip because Galba was completely bald. So he tucked the head inside his shirt, walked across town, then stuck his thumb in the dead emperor's mouth like a bowling ball to carry it to the next guy. The new emperor Otho stuck it on a pole and shouted, "What a pretty boy you are, Galba." The man was 73 and famously ugly. Otho actually killed himself pretty cleanly after losing a battle. Respect. Vitellius was not so lucky. Famous for eating 4 giant meals a day. When his enemies took over Rome, he hid in a doorkeeper's closet. They dragged him out half naked, tied a rope around his neck, forced his chin up with a sword so he had to look at the crowd while they pelted him with animal dung. Then they killed him, threw his body down Rome's stairs of shame, and dragged what was left into the river with meat hooks. 8 months on the job. Vespasian restored order and died peacefully of a fever. His last words were, "Dear me, I think I'm becoming a god, because Romans made dead emperors into gods." Funny guy, good emperor. Titus died of a fever at 42. His last words were, "I have made but one mistake," and nobody knows what he meant. Domitian was paranoid, had his palace walls lined with reflective stone so nobody could sneak up on him. A servant faked an arm injury for days, wearing a bandage that hid a dagger, stabbed Domitian, right in the groin. Domitian tried to fight back and grab the knife he kept under his pillow, but the servants had already removed the blade. They thought of everything. Nerva, fever, Trajan, stroke. Hadrian, the wall guy, tried to kill himself twice and failed both times. Asked a doctor to poison him. The doctor killed himself instead, so he wouldn't have to do it. Hadrian eventually just died of heart failure. Even suicide rejected this man. Antoninus Pius ate some bad cheese and died, Alpine cheese specifically. He was 75 and had ruled for 23 years without drama. Cheese got him. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, he died of fever during a plague, possibly addicted to opium. Even the smart ones couldn't catch a break. Lucius Verus, stroke or food poisoning, either way dead. And then came Commodus, son of Marcus Aurelius. Thought he was the reincarnation of Hercules. Fought in the Colosseum as a gladiator, but only against drugged or disabled opponents because he wanted to win every time. When people finally had enough, his concubine Marcia poisoned his food, but Commodus threw it up. Plan A failed, so they went with Plan B, send in his personal wrestling partner, a gladiator named Narcissus, to strangle him in the bathtub. Okay, now we enter the late Empire, which is where things go from wow that's crazy to this is just a meat grinder. Didius Julianus literally bought the Roman Empire at an auction. After the Praetorians killed Pertinax, they stood outside their camp and auctioned off the throne to whoever would pay them the most. Julianus outbid the other guy, became emperor, ruled for 66 days before the Senate had a soldier kill him in a bathroom. He bought the Roman Empire like it was furniture and got a 66-day return policy. Septimius Severus died of gout in York, England. Told his sons, be harmonious, enrich the soldiers, and scorn all other men. His sons did not listen, because his son Caracalla immediately murdered his brother Geta, stabbed him to death in their own mother's arms while she was covered in blood trying to protect him. Then Caracalla erased Geta from every record, coin, and statue in the empire, and Caracalla himself stabbed to death by his bodyguard while peeing on the side of the road. Macrinus lost a civil war. Elagabalus became emperor at 14. He was a Syrian sun priest who worshipped a meteorite, threw dinner parties where he served ostrich brains and raced camels in the Colosseum. He had prepared every possible luxury suicide method for himself. Silk nooses, golden swords, a jeweled tower to jump from, poison mixed with crushed gemstones. When the Praetorian Guard finally came for him, he hid in the palace toilets. They dragged him out, killed him, killed his mother, beheaded both of them, dragged the bodies through the streets, tried to shove his corpse into a sewer, it didn't fit, tied weights to it and threw it off a bridge into the Tiber. He was 18. Alexander Severus tried to pay off Germanic tribes instead of fighting them. His own soldiers thought that was embarrassing and killed him, and his mum. Maximinus Thrax, supposedly 8 feet tall, never visited Rome as emperor, killed by his own soldiers who stuck his head on a pole. Gordian I hanged himself with his own belt after his son died. Gordian II killed in battle. Same day his dad hanged himself. Pupienus and Balbinus, co-emperors, were both murdered by the Praetorian Guard in a bathhouse on the same day. Bathhouses were clearly not safe for emperors. Gordian III died on campaign in Persia at 19, probably murdered by his own guy. Philip the Arab, killed in battle. Decius, first emperor killed fighting a foreign enemy, swallowed by a swamp along with his son. Their bodies were never found. Trebonianus Gallus, killed by his own soldiers. Aemilianus, also killed by his own soldiers. Are we seeing a pattern? Now, Valerian. This one's not funny. Valerian became the first Roman emperor ever captured alive by an enemy. The Persian king Shapur used him as a human footstool. Every time Shapur mounted his horse, he stepped on the emperor of Rome's back. Some accounts say they poured molten gold down his throat. Others say when he finally died, the Persians skinned his body, dyed the skin purple, stuffed it with straw, and hung it in a temple as a trophy. Whether all of that is true or just some of it, it doesn't matter. It's the worst fate any Roman emperor ever faced, and it happened to the ruler of the most powerful empire on earth. Okay, back to the grind. Gallienus, killed by his own officers. Gothicus, died of plague. Quintillus, maybe suicide, maybe murdered. Nobody's sure. Nobody really cared. Aurelian, genuinely one of the greatest military emperors, reunified the entire empire, got murdered because his secretary forged a fake hit list with officers' names on it. The officers panicked and killed Aurelian first. When they found out the list was fake, they executed the secretary. Tacitus, natural causes, maybe. Florianus, killed by his own soldiers. Probus, made his soldiers do construction work during peacetime. They killed him. What did he expect? Carus, allegedly struck by lightning on a military campaign. Probably just murdered, but struck by lightning sounds way cooler, so that's what they went with. Numerian, this one's special. Numerian was emperor and travelling across Asia Minor in a sealed carriage. He said he had an eye infection and needed to keep the curtains closed. Nobody questioned it until a horrible smell started coming from the carriage. They finally opened it up and found his decomposed corpse. He'd been dead for who knows how long. Nobody noticed. His father-in-law was standing right there the whole time and definitely didn't do it. Nah, just kidding. He definitely did it. The next emperor killed him on the spot. Carinus, killed by an officer whose wife he'd been sleeping with. Classic. Diocletian actually did something nobody expected. He quit. He chose vegetables over Rome, and honestly, after seeing what happened to the other 47 guys on this list so far, fair enough. But the story doesn't end well. He had a nervous breakdown a few years later, and according to one ancient source, starved himself to death. Maximian, hanged, or forced to hang himself. He kept trying to unretire. Constantius Chlorus died in York, England. Natural causes. They called him Paleface because he was so anemic he was basically translucent. Galerius died of a disease that ate through his abdomen and genitals for over a year. There were open wounds with worms in them. The smell was reportedly unbearable. Christian writers said it was God's punishment. Whatever it was one of the most agonizing deaths on this entire list, and I'm not going to make a joke about it. Severus II, captured, executed. Maxentius drowned in the Tiber in full armour during a battle with Constantine. His head was fished out and paraded around. This was the battle where Constantine supposedly saw a cross in the sky and said, "I'm Christian now." Licinius, Constantine promised to spare his life, then hanged him. Constantine the Great, first Christian emperor, got baptized on his deathbed, died at 65 of natural causes. Now things really accelerate. The next 100 years are a blur. Constantine II, killed in a civil war against his brother. Constans, killed fleeing a coup. Constantius II, fever. Julian the Apostate, last pagan emperor, died from a spear wound fighting the Persians. Jovian died of carbon monoxide poisoning from a charcoal heater in his tent, or maybe bad mushrooms. Valentinian I is one of my favourites. He was meeting with Germanic ambassadors. They were being disrespectful. He got so angry that he literally burst a blood vessel in his brain mid-rant and dropped dead. Valens was wounded at the Battle of Adrianople, one of Rome's worst military disasters ever. Soldiers carried him to a small farmhouse. The Goths set the building on fire, not knowing he was inside. He burned alive. Gratian, betrayed and executed. Valentinian II, found hanged in his palace. Either suicide or his general killed him. He was 21 and basically a puppet. Theodosius the Great, last emperor to rule the whole thing, east and west, died of disease. Honorius. This man. Rome was literally sacked by the Visigoths in 410, and he was apparently more worried about his pet chickens. There's a story that when a servant told him, "Rome has perished," he thought they meant his favourite chicken, which was named Roma, and panicked. Then he found out it was just the city and calmed down. that story is probably made up, but the fact that people believed it about him says everything. Constantius III, natural causes. Joannes, lost a civil war. They cut off his right hand, put him backwards on a donkey, and paraded him through the arena while everyone screamed at him. Then they cut his head off. Valentinian III, murdered by soldiers hired by a senator whose wife he'd assaulted. Petronius Maximus, the guy who hired those soldiers, became emperor, ruled 75 days, then tried to run when the Vandals showed up. A Roman mob stoned him to death in the streets for being a coward. We're almost at the end, and by this point, being emperor was basically a death sentence with a fancy hat. Avitus, forced to become a bishop, then died. Majorian, tortured and beheaded by his own general Ricimer. Libius Severus, puppet emperor, probably poisoned by Ricimer. Anthemius ran into a church for safety. Ricimer's guys dragged him out and beheaded him anyway. Olybrius actually died naturally, the rarest achievement of all. Glycerius, forced to become a bishop, survived. Julius Nepos, stabbed by his own servants. And then there was one, Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor of Rome. Think about that name for a second. Romulus, like the founder of Rome. Augustus, like the first emperor. His name contained the entire history of Rome in 2 words. He was 16 years old. In 476, a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer marched into Italy, took over, and told the kid, "You're done." But instead of killing him, because, he was a kid, Odoacer just sent him to live in a villa in southern Italy, with a pension. The most powerful empire the ancient world had ever seen didn't end with a battle. It didn't end with a dramatic last stand. It ended with a teenager being told to go home. And that was it. 77 emperors, 503 years, murdered, strangled, poisoned, beheaded, stoned, burned, drowned, smothered, starved, rage-stroked, lightning-struck, toilet-caught, donkey-paraded, and, once, skinned and turned into furniture. And one kid who just got sent to his room. Thanks for watching, guys. Drop a thumbs up if you liked this video, and I see you in the next one.